I think it's a little over the top, but still,
Mm.
obviously, taking care of the planet is a big deal.
Yeah, it's
Space.
yeah, it's important for people to be passionate about something, and if there aren't enough people being passionate about it, it's the problem.
Well, it'll get
Having a
forgotten
few people.
essentially.
Yeah. So like it's not a bad thing.
I think balance is important. So you have your passion and you can do some extravagant things to get attention, but maybe don't take it too far and don't get emotionally carried away. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just I can see how emotion comes into it with the environment, because that's not something a handful of people can do alone. It really does involve like a global concerted effort.
Yeah, exactly.
And getting that, like herding cats is an understatement.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, and I think having like a rational debate and coming up with like tangible, like feasible solutions is the best way. Practical things that anybody can do, or like small countries or locales can manage. I mean, I still think like, okay, really, obviously we take care of our trash and the things that we contaminate the environment with. That's something that's really important. We plant trees and nuclear power. There you go. The Asarco plant was, and a byproduct that came out of the stacks had arsenic in it. And I think at the time it was kind of one of those times where they just didn't think about it. Just like, well, it's going into the air, it's fine. And then like, decades of that running, now they're like, oh shit, But it was established in a time where that was common practice.
Yeah.
And obviously we know better now, and there are still copper smelting plants that don't pump out stuff.
If I had a time machine, that's probably one of the things I would do, is like go back to the beginning of the industrial era and be like, hang on guys, slow down. You have to think about some things. Better ways to accomplish this. Just spend a little extra time thinking.
Well, it's that kind of thing that happens when it seems like there's an infinite supply of something, like the buffalo, right? There were so many buffalo in the U.S. when people started coming here and establishing rail and towns and stuff like that. It just seemed like it was never ending. And so, I mean, you know about that story, like people were in trains just picking off buffalo on the hills just for sport, just for fun. And nobody thought about it. The same thing with the dodo bird and stuff. It's kind of like, it's never ending. This will never stop. We can just use it as much as we want. And then one day there's no dodo birds. And there's only like a handful of buffalo. And they're like, oh, And it's fortunate that at least the buffalo stopped early enough to reestablish them. But
buffalo.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, and forestry is a good example of self-correction, because there's money in wood, in trees, and and it's like when you cut down an entire forest and don't replant, well, now you go out of business.
I saw something the other day that they invented liquid trees.
Huh. Weird.
They're like these big glass tanks with like chlorella filled water or something. Some kind of, like photosynthetic agent is in there. And they were like, this would be great for like city populations. And like the joke was, somebody commented, it's maybe the dumb question, but what's wrong with trees? But like the practical answer to that is that trees take a long time to grow, and you have to like actually pay attention to them in order for them to grow. So
yes,
like if you want to repopulate a dense urban area with trees, good luck with that.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Expensive shit,
Well, you're right. And like chlorella, if that's what it is that they're using, can be grown and propagated very quickly.
And trees can fall and kill people, and they leave a mess every autumn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and not good for cities. Maybe for like certain areas and stuff. But yeah, that's a good idea, honestly. And that's a cheap thing to do.
Yeah, and I wish we could do more of that stuff. Like, alternatives to trees. It's something I never even thought of.
I mean, nuclear power is feasible everywhere. It's something that is beneficial. It's not like ultimately it makes money, and of course trees. That's easy.
That's a finite resource as well, right?
Well, yeah, but we have enough fissile material to last for thousands of years, depending. I mean, because you can do the uranium route or the plutonium route or thorium, and there's new discoveries being made every day. And of course, we also have the potential for fusion, which isn't there yet, but like it's on the horizon, like the near horizon. So if we start with, fission first, the one we know how to do really well, and basically make everything else obsolete. It's like in coal, what's the point of coal? We have nuclear, or whatever. And then once we finally crack the shell, so to speak, with fusion, then we have limitless energy at that point. And I think that's a good thing. And that's like, that's why I always kind of like, I'm disappointed at like various countries that do like wind and solar and stuff, because it's like, there are big problems with both of those. And like, it's not going to be the future, like the permanent, like, well, this is what we're going to use from here on out. It's just not feasible everywhere.
I mean, not to rely on, but as like an accompaniment to whatever, I think why not use that? Because
I agree. But like the amount of land that would have to be basically covered and made useless to provide the energy needs of planet Earth would be and the amount of resources needed to be yoinked out of the Earth. I'd rather everybody be prepared. Because it's like, you can imagine the situation where it's like, if you're the only one in the area that actually has supplies to meet whatever emergency comes up, well, people are going to be coming to you. Now everybody's a threat. But if everybody's ready, now you can work as a team, because everybody's like, oh yeah, I don't need anything. I got all the stuff. So you can work to tackle whatever problem is going on, like natural disaster or something like that.
Although it could be said that, with the power in numbers, if you bring a certain number of people under your wing and, help them in exchange, like you have a pool of ideas for the next steps, because eventually that stuff will run out no matter what. You have to be able to then go collect more things, and if you did all that when you can just go to the grocery store easy peasy, that's one thing. But now if you've got to like defend the fort and go find stuff and wrench it away from the hands of others, like all alone.
Yeah. I mean, it depends. See, and that's where it's like a variety of kits are helpful. And because if you had, like, it depends on how long the duration of whatever situation is, like if there's a big solar flare, well, that duration could be years. Or like maybe a big war or something. But if it's like a localized thing, then maybe you're talking weeks, maybe a month or two, and that kind of thing. It just depends. And that's where it's like, in my mind, like part of the reason going through all these kits is like, okay, you can have like the basic stuff, and that's where you should begin. Begin with the fundamental things, like a 3-day emergency kit, right? Have that stuff sorted out. So it's like, oh, okay, now I'm good. If like, say there's a little power outage or something, and then just start collecting more things for longer duration stuff. Like, I mean, now I have these number 10 cans with like 30-year shelf life and stuff. And so it's like, I have enough to last quite a while. And in that point in time, it's like, oh, well, what you would do, is get your team together essentially and farm. You'd plant seeds and maybe some livestock somehow and that kind of thing, and set up a farm. So that's your longer term. Again, if it was like a solar flare, you'd be like, well, we need to make our own food. There's only so much you can scavenge.